Hey everyone, this is a late night live stream. Not long. Let me cut to the chase. The Jedi Rich show is a small YouTube channel and social media presence, has really focused on the Las Vegas Stadium Authority issue uh, with laser like intensity. Now, their style aside, I strictly give them credit for the stories that they've broken and point out when they do so. However, there are some, like, and I'll have to say the Review Journal, that don't. And they claim the Review Journal to be a staff of journalists. They're not. Because, and this is from a person who does not call himself a journalist. In fact, if you go to Google and type Zinni Abraham, you will find something that reads, I'm a vlogger, not a journalist. So I'm not preaching. I'm not saying, hey, look, I am the journalist. But all I know is simply this, that that pure and simple, that uh, the habit, the habit of a person who gets their information. Let's take journalists on. Let's talk bloggers. Okay, it's the bloggers knew a rule that simply says this. That says, hey, you know what? If I get information from someplace, then I explain who I got it from. That is what you're supposed to do. Okay? That is what you're supposed to do. Now, they didn't do that. And in not doing it, apparently from my communication with Jedi Rich, tried to make Jedi Rich look bad on Twitter. I said, just block him. Because because the people at the Review Journal who do this, they're not really worth communicating. Let me say something. I want to emphasize this. None of this should be an issue, okay? You have information from one place, you exchange it. That's it. And the bottom line is this. They found the problem. And in a normal stadium process, with $750 million of basic public money involved, not to mention money that's going to be spent for roads and freeways and other upgrades and parking and streetlights and everything else, when you have an investment that's totaling about $1 billion from the public end alone, you must have, you're supposed to have, weekly press updates or at least a portal on your website. And I'm not saying this is by law, this is by process, this is by habit. This is the thing that a good construction organization, a good firm does, right? That updates everyone regarding what's happening with the project. But the Raiders, Las Vegas Stadium, and the other organizations that are attached to this, Mortensen McCarthy specifically, don't do that. If there's a press release, I have never seen one. And if there's a press release out there to be found by search, it's not even searchable to find. They haven't put out a regular string of press releases that give an update. Now, you would say, basically, that the simple fact of the matter is the Las Vegas Stadium Authority actually has a legal right. Think about it, okay? Think about it, okay? A legal right, okay? As per Senate Bill 1, has a legal right to basically say, hey, you know what? We don't have to share our financial information with you. But that says nothing about construction information. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Sunshine never reached this project. The simple fact of the matter is this. When they use a lot of terminology, because they're really afraid of being made to look like, oh, they're in trouble. Let's take it from the top, what the problem is. Jedi Rich and Jedi Joy discovered that a truss span that was installed originally in May 12th, last week was actually taken down, and it wasn't put up for days. That revelation and the fact that they reported on it and then I amplified it via my system and it came up on all the news aggregators. Then it became news, and it was on Oakland Raiders forums and everything else. Then it became an issue that the Review Journal had to pay attention to, if only so that they could satisfy the stadium authorities' desire to see me not the top news story on Google News anymore. Of course, this is going to change that. Okay? But again, I say this. All of that is ridiculous. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Just do the project right. Just do the project right. Now, as far as Rich Villada, I blocked him. I don't have a bet with him. I don't have anything. I've had Rich on my show, for those of you who haven't paid attention. But in spite of my having him on his show, he adopts a behavior that can only be described on social media as belligerent. And so I would rather not have a relationship or a contact with a person who acts like that, because it reveals demons within them that I don't want to know about or see. So I would rather distance myself from a person like that, because I don't consider people like that good. I'm just being honest. All right? There's a level of decorum and a level of discourse that must be maintained in all aspects of life. And if you can't do that, then I'm telling you, the worst in life will happen to you, not the best. Especially if you're doing this and it's not your name, or it is your name in Rich's case, and you're treating people inappropriately, or you're saying things to them that, and you're calling them fake news, like he does with Vital Vegas and Scott, or he tried to do with me, and I wasn't, and he retweeted a tweet that had within it information that didn't even come from me. And yet News 3 Las Vegas, the anchor over there, Steve Wolford, I believe, and Tommy White put out information about me that was false. And fortunately, the media editor, thank God, of News 3 Las Vegas called me with a very deep and heartfelt apology about the behavior of the news organization, which I really thank once again that this was done, because they knew that kind of behavior is outside their standards and practices, and that if I wanted to, I could have filed a lawsuit against them and won big time. Wasn't going to do that, didn't even threaten to do that, okay? Didn't even threaten to do that, all right? So I've got that all out of the way, and let me explain now what's going on. What everybody forgets, or if not forgets, seems to go on to conveniently ignore, is the simple fact that Don Webb, who I've actually praised as a guy who's, I think, trying to deal with all this information coming out at once. And I don't know Don, so I hold out hope that he is the gentleman that he seems like he was when I briefly was standing near him in the room and we were looking at each other. I guess maybe he was thinking I was going to... It was kind of funny, because I think for that split second, I thought he was going to shake my hand. He probably thought I was going to shake his, and then I got distracted with something else that didn't happen. I have nothing against Don Webb. I don't have anything against anybody, except those people who don't use their real name, okay? Who then go out and you have no idea who they ever are, ever. And they use those personas to not be good, all right? Be good. All I'm saying is just be good and be nice to people. Nothing wrong with folks. You might find the person that you're mean to is the person that might be the best barbecue maker in the United States. Just saying. And if you like barbecue, then you've cut yourself out of a great barbecue, right? My point is this. If you have a disagreement about something that happened, just leave it to that. But don't get personal. What we're talking about with respect to this Truss issue and Truss issue is this, that first of all, Don Webb had said that he hoped that the trusses would be in place by July 31st of this year. That was a deadline. It was a deadline that was imposed. He then also told Rich Villada of the Review Journal, and he said that he estimates that there are 20 trusses in place. Do you know what estimates means? Estimates means you really don't know the answer, but you're guessing. Well, you know what? When Rich put out his tweet, he conveniently left out the word estimates. He knew doggone well that was wrong. He just left it to try to do what Rich does, to make it seem like, oh, this thing is further along than it really is. If there were a problem, Rich would move heaven and earth to ignore it. Okay? And since he represents Sheldon Adelson and the Adelson family, which ostensibly we're going to put a lot of money into the project, one has to ask the question, are they still with skin in the game and we don't know it? Because SB1 and the way it's written regarding our inability to find out the true skinny on financial information prevents us from actually knowing if the Adelson family is really involved. And combine that with this total disinformation that's out there. And I'm saying to you, as people who claim to be fans, you're not doing anybody a service when you try to trumpet this disinformation. Now, if you're the person who happens to be working for Legends Hospitality or one of the sponsors, you know, I really think it's a good idea that you reveal yourself in that capacity, because it will be found out at some point, either by a mistake you make or somebody else in some kind of way. Karma has a way of working itself out that way. Isn't life beautiful like that? But at any rate, my point is that where this is that that deadline is basically a kind of a situation where, how do I say it? They really don't know if they're going to make that deadline. And when they adjust the schedule, they move the schedule back. Okay? They move the schedule back, all right? So, excuse me for a second. They did that last fall when they moved the schedule back to mid-September. And when they moved the schedule back to mid-September, and they're going to probably do it again. So when they say adjust the schedule, what they do is they have this, when you look at the reports for the subsequent meeting dates coming up, look at the stadium updates, the reports they file, going back over them and look for the schedule. Look for the bar charts and see where design administration stops. That's of all of the titles, of all the operations, that's the one that has the longest lifespan. That's the one that has the end date. That's the longest. That will tell you when they really expect the project to be complete. And when they start playing with that, look at how they played with it, okay? Because they will start playing with it. And again and again and again. That will tell you everything that you need to know about where the project really is or is supposed to be. And they're not, and so basically, they're not going to alter their messaging, but they will alter their scheduling. And the only way they'll alter their messaging is if, somebody in the media says, hey, by the way, you're not telling us what's really happening here, and this is what we found. That's not a great place for them to, that's not a great position for the organization to be in, but they quite literally have backed themselves into that position, haven't they? I mean, think about it. That's what they've done. They've backed themselves into a position where they say, oh, hey, you know what? Every time they have to figure out some creative way of talking about what's happening and some creative way of telling you, oh, by the way, that this is what we have to do to make up the problem or to deal with the problem all the time, okay? All the time. That's what they have to do. And so, and it's unfortunate. That's the position that they're in, all right? That's the position that they're in, okay? So, it's nothing that anybody does is going to change that until the Raiders and the Las Vegas Stadium Authority get to a point where they pure and simple, start disclosing information in a timely manner. Like every week they give you updates, all right, regarding the stadium situation on a weekly basis. That's really where you should be. When the Falcons had a stadium problem, they let you know about it. When Israel started dropping bombs on Gaza, they had a press conference the same day. You mean to tell me that Israel can drop bombs on Gaza and have a press conference about it the same day and basically tell everybody, yeah, we dropped the bombs and here's why, and the Raiders can't be straight up in their own damn stadium? That's stupid. Okay? I mean, you mean to tell me that the New York chief of police had a press conference on the day that Amadou Diallo was shot, and he talked about the incident, and you're going to tell me, all right, that they can't, that the Raiders Stadium can't at all, the Raiders can't at all be up front, okay, about what's happening? It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. All right? And, I mean, it's a laugher. It's an absolute laugher. So, there is a serious problem here. A very serious problem. A very serious problem, okay? So, every time or any time that you look at a stadium project, look at, purely and simply, look at the messaging, the press conference structure, and everything else, and say to yourself, all right, and say to yourself, pure and simple, hey, cowboy wrestler, how you doing? And let's see here. So people here I don't recognize, so they are gone. They appear to be the same person with multiple accounts. So there you go. All right. There, okay. So cool. All right. And all right, cool. Now onward through the fog. There we go. Okay. Awesome. Now, we have, what else is happening here? We have, excuse me for a second. Cool. We have, and by the way, welcome to Zenny62. And I'm proud to report that my channel set a record yesterday in terms of traffic, and so did my blog, oaklandnewsnow.com. For those of you who are looking for bad news, sorry, sucker. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. And complete suckers. But at any rate, complete suckers. If you got, hey, by the way, I moved aside anybody that's the psychotic and left it open for those of you who are regular viewers. Welcome to Zenny62. Now, where are we talking about? We're talking about the stadium. And so where we are right now in terms of trusses is they have this delay. Webb hopes that they'll make the deadline. Then in terms of sponsorships, they still only have 3 sponsorships. Cox, Communications, Caesars Entertainment, okay? Cox Communications, Caesars Entertainment, and also PBG, Pittsburgh Paint. That's it. If there's 509 days before the stadium is to open, let me tell you something, that with 509 days before the Atlanta Falcons opened Mercedes-Benz Stadium, they had 8 sponsors. And by the fall of that year, they gained Mercedes-Benz as the naming rights sponsor. The Raiders are nowhere near that. And again, no amount of effort to cover that up is going to change that situation. So those of you who are thinking, hey, I should try and cover this up, well, you know what? You're not going to. And those of you who might be paid to try to blunt my message, you know what? Whoever's paying you to do that, they're basically wasting their money, or quite a bit. For 2 reasons. A, my system is more powerful than yours, and B, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. Oh, and by the way, C, you really don't know anything about the stadium project either, except what the Raiders tell you. You don't have the background to know what to look for. Okay? I do. Now, moving along. Cowboy says, don't let the trolls get to you, Z. No, I don't let the trolls get to me, but it's fun to, to be honest with you, it's fun to take a little bit of time to tell a person who actually I think is a waste of time, to come here and try to do whatever it is they're trying to do, only to realize, hey, they can't do it. They're gone. And I'm thinking, why would you want to waste your life on an activity like that? So it's not that they're getting to me at all. I think it's funny because my numbers are great, And I started really, really late. This is like, I think something like 2:28 in the morning, okay? Or something of that order, okay? So Cowboy Rush says, the Vegas marks are trying to force their talking points on each other, on others. Yeah, they are. And it's funny, right? It's quite funny that they're doing that. I think when they do that, what does that tell you, Cowboy Wrestler? This is what it tells me. It tells me that they're very much afraid of, I'm just going to say, scaring off potential sponsors. Because the more bad information that comes out about this, combined with however this is being managed or mismanaged, it means they don't get the sponsors they're looking for. And then let's look at this from an entirely other perspective, okay? Let me say this. I want to get one thing out of the way here, all right? I want this project to succeed. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It's great for Las Vegas, or it should be, and it's an interesting experiment in sports gambling that I personally want to see work. And the reason why I want to see it work, and I've said this before for those who pay attention, like Cowboy Wrestler, but for those of you who haven't paid attention before, or maybe you're just not of a mind to really, absorb things that are detailed. I don't know what's going on with you, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. When I was starting sports business simulations, I was approached by someone I'm not going to say who offered a lot of money for me to change my site into a gambling site. This was 2004, excuse me. And I was in partnership with my business partner, Dan Rasher. And Dan and I looked up the legal statutes, and I said, you know what, if we do that, we'll be hauled off to jail. Now, the laws have relaxed a great deal, such that we have FanDuel, and we have, hey, John Akala, how you doing? We have FanDuel. Great to see you here. We have FanDuel, and we have DraftKings, and they are taking up the kind of activity that, at the time, I couldn't. But the idea was really cool. It was, since I figured out a formula wherein I could actually sort of model how a player might behave on a team in a very quick way, that could extrapolate to a fantasy sports betting game. So you play this game of the team for money. To get a certain score, you get money, right? That was what this other proposal was, and it was based on what the actual value of each player would be in real life. So you have the fantasy that meets the gaming. That was the idea. But at the time it was proposed to me, we couldn't do it. The law didn't allow us to do it. I had the game, the algorithms, everything. Working games used in different colleges and high schools, but the law did not allow us to do it. Things have really dramatically changed to this point where, hey, that can be done now again. And so I am kind of thinking, but I got to rewrite the code and everything else. I don't want to do it in 4.0 macro language for a host of reasons that have to do with clunkiness, but so be it. Cowboy Rush, although I know 4.0 macro language still, but even then they may have changed it and I want to deal with the compiler, and yeah, forget it. All right. Yeah, just the way it goes. Hey, when you look, there's tens of thousands of programming languages to know today. The only question is which one of them is cheap. Hey, Sean, how you doing? Thank you for the investment. By the way, I owe an investment update. Thank you very much, Sean. Cowboy Rush says, I have no issue with Las Vegas. My issue is solely with the Raiders organization and Raiders organization only. I have a real problem with how Mr. Davis has ruined the franchise. You know, I hear you loud and clear. I contend that if Mark had just basically played and I've said this before, the Dallas Cowboys Clint Murchison way. Just, you know what? Stay in the background. Hire your president, like the Cowboys had Tex Schramm. Hire your player personnel director, like the Cowboys had Gil Brandt, the legendary Gil Brandt, and who ushered in computerized scouting of football and worked with a guy named Quirine Irishi, who was from IBM, but I digress. And then you have your head coach, the legendary NFL Hall of Fame coach, my favorite other than Bill Walsh, Tom Landry. Okay. Cowboy Rush says Las Vegas is doing what any other city its size should be doing, economic development. And that's the other reason why I root for them. Because they're doing, hey, everybody, welcome to Zenny 62. They're doing economic development. The kind of economic development that Las Vegas is doing is the kind of economic development that Oakland should do. Now, having said that, that does not mean at any way, shape, or form that the Raiders were in the right and this lawsuit is not just. No, completely the opposite. If the Raiders were not straightforward regarding their intentions, and there's more than ample evidence to show for that. More than ample evidence to show for that. If the Raiders had, I've said this before, I'll say it again. If the Raiders had made it a horse race and said to the city of Oakland, hey, look, here's a design we want, said it to the public so that everybody knew what the game was, said, hey, look, we want to pursue gambling. And even if it wasn't something the league wanted, put it out there. Because if the league is doing this behind the backs of people, and there's evidence to suggest that might have been the case, you got some problems. Because if you start looking at this from an entirely other perspective, starting in 2014, let me tell you, you have a situation where Mark Davis, think about this. Mark Davis, if ESPN is correct, Mark Davis was talking about gambling and had this UNLV document, which I have, that basically shows how gambling can be done in such a way that there's no fixing of professional games theoretically. All right. He's doing this in 2014. Do you know what happened in 2015? Tony Romo faced the National Football League. Tony Romo faced Tony Romo, all right? Tony Romo basically turned around and the National Football League, all right? Straight up, the National Football League, all right, says that hey, I have this gambling event. And in Vegas, the league says, this is 2015, folks, you can't do your gambling event. Now they're saying to him, you can't do your gambling event in Vegas. At the same time, Mark Davis is talking about bringing gambling to Vegas. Okay? What does that tell you? All right? What does that tell you? Okay? What does that tell you? All right? That tells me, and I'll tell you what it tells me. That tells me, all right, that purely, okay, that tells me purely that you have one faction of NFL owners trying to push the league toward gambling, and you have another faction led by Roger Goodell, this I know, that doesn't want it. Goodell didn't want that. John Mara didn't want that. The late Bob McNair didn't want that. Okay? So, at least as I understood, I think Bob was more on the fence. But I know Wellington Mara didn't. Okay? And Ray Abbott has something I want to address here. Pat, because I met Pat Bolin. VR says, are you going to any games in Vegas? I have no idea what I'm going to do with respect to Vegas. Ryan Abbott says, Broncos owner passed away. Will his kids pay the taxes to own the team? I heard this is why Georgia Frontieri's kids didn't buy the Rams because of inheritance tax. Does Kroenke have first right of refusal? Okay, Ryan, I don't know the answer to that question. However, given that I had blogged about the Bolin Trust issue last year, I know exactly who to go to find out the answer to that question. That's precisely what I'll do. And I would really appreciate it if you would remind me of the question too. If you every time you see me, just say, hey, Zinni, did you check on that Bolin thing? Right? I really appreciate it. Or if you can think of sending me an email and saying, hey, Zinni, do you have an update on that Bolin matter? And I'll get it for you. But I'll start working on that right off the bat. Basically what Ryan is asking is very much a situation that's similar to Mark Davis. Okay, what I was told is that the actual owner of the Raiders is actually Carol Davis. That's Mark's mother. The minute she passes away, then he inherits. Literally, he has to pay this inheritance tax, and it's hefty. And so there's a lot of people think that it was one reason why he moved to Vegas, because in Oakland he wasn't really getting enough money to really afford that, and the Raiders weren't doing well at the Coliseum from a monetary standpoint. They needed to be where they could actually really haul in more money, and arguably they're doing that. Okay, so and from that perspective, ding, bully for Mark, all right. And Cowboy says Jerry Jones for some reason. Then Cowboy Russia says, I'm hearing rumors, and they are rumors, that John Elway might be interested in buying the team, unconfirmed though. I've heard that as well. I think the biggest issue right now is basically who runs it, and I know that Beth Bolin had put in a bid to run it. However, the Bolin Trust, led by not Elway, but this fellow that is partnered with Elway, who's let me see something here. Name just flew right out of my head, but that's what the internet is for, isn't it? Right? The Bolin Trust, and he is actually the CEO of the Bolin Trust, or title to that effect. But and so the Bolin Trust Broncos there, bingo. Oh yeah, right there. And so Joe Ellis, that's the guy, Joe Ellis, and Joe Ellis, according to Broncos Wire and according to 9 News, Elway trusts Ellis, the trustee, in the Broncos' future ownership plans. That's with here. Broncos to honor Bolin won't rename stadium, but there's still said to be uncertainty. Hey, Daryl, how you doing, Daryl? Daryl says, are the Raiders going to fight for the name and colors? No, they're not, because that's not in the lawsuit. And I'm only stating a fact. If you please take time, download the lawsuit for yourself, and you can read copies of it. It's all over the internet. Use the internet, folks. The internet's your friend. No, it's a damages issue. So what you are hoping for, if you're saying, dang it, Zinni, I want those name and colors. Okay, here's what you're hoping for happen. Here's the outcome you want to press. And not only that, I'm going to say something else. If you want, don't focus on the name and colors. Here's where I get after fans that say they want that. They only talk about the name and colors, name and colors, name and colors, name and colors. My point is, instead of doing that, why don't you start a Twitter account that consistently trumps out all of the negative aspects, the things the Raiders did that were wrong, that the public should know about that impact the case. Because my point is, you're not helping the case. Yelling name and colors and name and colors is meaningless to anybody. None of you, have done anything to advance why this case should go in the favor of the city of Oakland and not the Raiders. You haven't put out anything. I have. I do all the time. When I'm trying to preach, and I know when people didn't understand it, is this. You know, this is what you're doing. It can be described this way. And I think it was said by Jim Turner, who was the place kicker for the Denver Broncos in Super Bowl 12, when the Broncos got crushed by the Dallas Cowboys 27-10. He told Sports Illustrated, we were out there, they were out there thinking about football. Now, we were out there thinking about winning. And they were out there thinking about football. And as John Facenda said, and the person doing all the thinking was Tom Landry. My point, that's one of my favorite lines in all the NFL films works. But I digress. My point is that all of you are thinking about the victory. You're not thinking about how to get there. You have done nothing to assist in getting there. Nothing. I produced an article that is on the website of Jim Quinn's firm. It's the only article around this case. No, it's not the only one, but it's the only non-mainstream article, media article around this case to be featured on the website of Berg and Entropy. All right? And I take that as a compliment because it means the lawyers say, and I know they understand that I know what I'm doing, because I work to know what I'm doing. I don't just know what I'm doing. I work hard. Okay? I study. All right? That's why. And so I really appreciate that. But my point is, that made is the rest of you who want the name and colors, do some digging. Ask yourself the question, what did the Raiders, good question, what did the Raiders do to put us in this situation? And you know what, tweet them out. Let people know. You can't just say you want the name and colors. Work to get these things. Because what you want to do is this. You want to drive up the case for damages. Okay? Treble damages. We got three areas of damage. You have the game day, $207 million expense. All right, that's one. You've got the bond issue, $220 million. That's the other. It's coming out of the general fund, right? That's two. Okay. And then in terms of the third, you have the expenditures for damages. The damage expenditure, all right? On top of that. So I would say that you have somewhere in the, you've got, the bond, I mentioned the bond issue, then the game day expenses, which the bond issue is $220 million, the game day expenses are $207 million, and then there's a third area that I had actually calculated, and I'll come back to that. The point is, I've said this before, and I'll say it again, Those three add up to 600 million. What's 6 times 3 is 18. That's 1.8 billion. There's your damage award. What does that sound like? It sounds like the value of an NFL team, doesn't it? So I just gave you your candy. You see how that works? I just gave you your candy. All I'm asking, all I am begging for you all to do is think and work. Stop with this yelling and screaming and this ridiculous activist behavior that reflects this idea that you really don't know and you don't want to know and you don't want to do any research. You don't want to, like, you know, what I'm saying is this. This is what I learned from Elihu Harris, who's been on my show. It's this. Oh, and by the way, I apologize. I'll get to your comments here, all right? And so what you want to get to is this. You understand how to cultivate power, the power of information. And you lay low, you don't flame anybody on social media, just have your information, and when you feel like you've got it, you've got the right amount of it, boom! You come out of the woodwork like you're the damn Viet Cong, you pop a cap in their ass with some information. Bam! That's what you do. That's what you do. You pop a cap in their ass, man. Ping! Gotcha. That's what you do. That's how you handle it, okay? That's information warfare, folks. That's what you want. Now I'll read your comments. And so, Riot Abbott says, just read an NFL team is an estate tax, and about 40% of the valuation seems about right, okay? Cowboy Rush says, real quick, what are your thoughts on SoFi Stadium? Quick? Let me come back to that one. Ryan Abbott says, George, I will come back to that. Ryan Abbott says, Georgia Frontieri's kid sold her share of the Rams, which was 60%, to Stan Kroenke for $450 million, which is the tax on her share of the team. Okay. And I still need to research that. Sean Watson, thank you, Ryan, by the way, for that valuable information. Thank you very much. Sean Watson writes, I just wanted the Raiders in the city of Oakland to think about all those dang jobs that are leaving Oakland. It's sad to think about all these people losing their jobs. It really is. You're absolutely right. It is sad. It's something that they're losing it, not just with the Raiders, but the Warriors. Now, yeah, a person go across the bay, but what bothers me is the real loser in all this is East Oakland. Because I don't know if anybody on this watching here has went to Francesco's. And I have videos from Francesco's. I love that place. It was on Hagenberger Road, on Party and Hagenberger Road intersection. It was the unofficial home of the Raiders. Al Davis had a table for himself. You know, anytime he walked in, he had his table, his spot, you know. And that was the place. And, hey, the Raider Lou says, at least the A's won by 2 touchdowns today. Good one, Raider Lou. How you doing, by the way? That was a great Raider place, a great Raider shrine. And after a game, fans would stream in, and they had great Irish coffees if you had drank that sort of thing. And it was really wonderful. Sean Watts says Foster Freezers. Not getting that one. But at any rate, and I say that because Francesco's is closed, but it hasn't been replaced by anything like a Foster Freeze. You know, just hasn't. That whole group is gone. That stream of people that would leave the arena to go to a nearby place, go to the Hilton, right? Hang out and party and meet your next wife and everything, well, your first wife or whatever. That's all gone. Calressa writes, just imagine if the Raiders had an owner with deep pockets like Kroenke. Instead, we are stuck with Davis. You know, I don't even think of it that way. I think of it this way. Look, I look at it this way. Mark Davis wanted to do gambling. Okay? And then on top of that, Mark Davis had been trying to figure out a way to get out of Oakland basically since his old man passed away and he got rid of Amy Trask. Amy Trask would have been perfectly suited to work with Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf. Period. And Wright Abbott says, I disagree on the 30-year bond from 95. The Raiders are liable. We will see you on July 18th. What do you mean by that? He says, I am from 19th, by the way. I am from San Diego and used to the Padres and charges the mayor's passing bad deals for taxpayers. One, Ryan, forget all that. Forget all that, okay? Understand the details behind the deal before you say that. Because and understand what this is about. The bond issue is not the central part of this lawsuit. I repeat, the bond issue is not the central part of this lawsuit. It's part of the damage calculation, but it's not the central part. The central part is in the, oh, by the way, also sponsorship revenues, that lost sponsorship revenues, that's $200 million. So yeah, you have lost sponsorship revenues, $200 million. Game day expenses, $207 million. Bond issue, those are the three. Bing, bing, that's the big three. Figured it out. Okay, now, look, that's not it. So again, know the deal. Know what the lawsuit is about. The lawsuit is about lack of good faith bargaining, okay? The lawsuit is about breach of contract, and they're calling the contract the non-relocation agreement. And in St. Louis, the non-relocation agreement was recognized as a contract. So the Raiders' track record in this, when you look at the case history, is not right. Ryan says, that's crazy. It hasn't even been 30 years since they moved back to Oakland, and they're already moving, and there's another 6 years left on the expansion bond from 95. Right. Now take a look at what the Warriors are doing. The Warriors lost in court. They haven't paid the city of Oakland their money yet either. But they lost. You know, it's not court and arbitration. They lost. And they were warned by then Oakland City Attorney John Russo that, hey, if you Warriors try to move, you're going to owe us the remaining money of that bond issue. And the Warriors like, okay. And that was when Chris Cohen owned it. But he also, John Russo did, he warned Joe Lacob when he bought the team. So what does Lacob and company do? Stupidly, they think they can arrogantly get away with just moving and not paying the city. Why? Because Russo's not there? You know what all this is you sign on the line that is dotted. That signature does not change with politicians, and it doesn't change with bureaucracies. That signature is the signature. And all the terms and conditions of that contract last into perpetuity. Period. That's the lesson here. When you be careful what you sign. There's all that statement about, they used to have those terms about signing your life away, right? Don't sign your life away. Know what you're putting your John Hancock on. Okay? So, Raider Lou says, I agreed. Oh, Raider Lou says, I'm doing good. I'm hoping the A's can go on a little run while I patiently wait for Hard Knocks. That's going to be fun. August 6th, 2 days after my birthday. Anyway, Raider Lou says, agreed. I miss Amy. Cabrera says, Davis wanted Los Angeles. He got Vegas instead. Yeah, Mark was really mad. When I played that video before, he was mad. I was there. You could see he was seething. And he felt naked. He felt embarrassed. He felt like he was, stood up. And it wasn't fun watching that because, again, I don't, as much as Mark Davis may think to the contrary, I don't dislike him at all. I don't like the way he's treated me, but then on the other hand, he, claims that he doesn't like some of the things that okay, fine. Okay. We both have a lot of water under the bridge. But my point is, I don't dislike the man. Never have. That's just me. And I feel that basically he tried to get something. He never really was in Oakland. And someone else told me that he had bad childhood experience in Oakland. And, I'm starting to really believe that's the case because if you grow up in an area and it's not really the greatest to you, when you get enough money, you're not necessarily going to want to be there. I know of a number of people who worked in Oakland who don't want to be in Oakland anymore, and then they left. All right, I have always felt that Oakland was a metaphor for how blacks were treated on the West Coast, and that is why I worked so hard to bring the Super Bowl to Oakland. I wanted people to see a black city, and it's not it wouldn't have been the only city to have done this. Look at Detroit. Detroit got the Super Bowl and hosted it in grand fashion in 2006. But my point is, I wanted kids to see black kids to see a black guy do it. I wanted kids to know, hey, you get your education, you use your noggin, you can do big things. Okay? That was what I was after. I wanted some kid to say, you know what, I can do that too. I wanted a black kid to say it because look at the television. Look at how many negative images, even today, because that was back in 2000 when I was working on the Super Bowl, 1999 through 2001. But look at even today how many negative images of African Americans are put out there. Look at what happened to Messiah Ujiri, excuse me. He is the president of the Toronto Raptors, and an Alameda County Sheriff's deputy comes over, hits him, says, you can't have your credential, you step back. Doesn't even do the man the dignity and respect of asking him if he has a credential. Doesn't put two and two together and figure out, hey man, this is a well-dressed guy wearing a suit that's more expensive than all the uniform I've got on. Maybe he might be some big guy that's supposed to be down here. He didn't ask him. He just assumed he was a common black guy that he could rough up. And it got him into trouble. Okay? It got him into trouble. Because all around the world, people are looking at Alameda County and Oakland, they're looking at the Alameda County Sheriff's Department, and they're saying, you know what, you guys are racist. You guys are racist. Because this guy rebuilt the Raptors and you treat him like that? So my point is, and you can see by the way I responded, okay, I wanted to create what Ignacio de la Fuente said I did do. He said, when I tried to bring Super Bowl to Oakland, it was the only positive news the Coliseum presented. And for good reason. The Raiders were suing us. Yeah, I was in the middle of a lawsuit. And Amy was CEO. Still love Amy to this day. She knows that. Ryan Abbott writes, Davis is on the outside of the owners club. That is why the Davis family is the outcast. Most of the owners all vote the same way, and it seems like Davis is the outsider. Some like Spanos too. I would say that Mark is less that. That was certainly true for his father because Al Davis had gained the nickname Mr. Abstention. He would always abstain from a vote. But Mark has done a lot to be more of the club, okay? And he realizes, I think he realizes going in that he has a lot to learn, had a lot to learn. I think he worked to be a quick study. And I think, he has some health issues too. So we're not talking about a person who's, working out, spring chicken, and all that stuff. He's got some health issues, folks. And I worry about him. I really do. I worry that he's not eating right, and he's not sticking to his diet. And these are things I haven't said before. And that's that's as much out of respect for him as I'll say about that. But if you're paying attention, you realize I really like Mark Davis. Okay. So my point is, we're all family with the Raiders. There are people that I stretch my relationships back to 1975 with that are still around. And Otis Sistrunk being one of them, who's here in Georgia. I gotta call him. So I can go on and on and on. It hurts because of the way the family's broken up like that. But then you have to start thinking of it differently. And being in the internet age, it makes it a little easier, right? It makes it easier. So I would say definitely that it's a difficult something to happen. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I really worry about and it is a worry. I'm not saying this facetiously. It has been a concern of mine ever since this was first brought up at the meetings of the Southern Nevada Tourism and Infrastructure Committee. And my concern has been how much of the 50 large events, we're not talking about weddings, okay, large events, they would actually be able to obtain at Las Vegas Stadium, given that you have MSG Sphere going up, a just approved 25,000 seat soccer stadium going up, and you know, got to do, because there certainly are other, in fact, of course there are other arenas and other theaters that are going up that will threaten its ability to do that. Let's take Resorts World. I know about the rooms and everything, but what about the event spaces? Will it have a giant convention center? I don't know. If the answer is it has a giant convention center, and that convention center is 200,000 square feet, that hurts the Raiders. Okay, that hurts the Raiders. That's one more space that can be used for a large-scale event that can hurt the Raiders' ability to get a large-scale event at Las Vegas Stadium. And there's a part of me that, as a friend of mine said this. He said that Las Vegas, how did he put it? It was kind of a vulgar term, so I'm not going to use it. What he was trying to say was that Las Vegas gets on this bandwagon and develops all these things at once. So instead of, having one stadium, you've got a stadium here and a stadium here and an arena here, all at the same time. They're all competing against each other. And then one of them or two of them or more will fall out. You would think the one with the public money has a chance, right? Because the cost of the dang on thing is just up and up and up. Okay? And I'm sorry, there are issues that we've forgotten about. We don't know if there are new mechanics liens. There's a mechanics lien that still exists, right? It hasn't been resolved because there's a rider on it where Merrill Steel basically could slap on additional change orders. What's going on with that? What's going on with Tab Construction and their two price disputes they have over there? What about others? So this thing is alive with controversy, controversial activity. And they keep trying to cover it up, but it's just under the surface. Kind of like those, skull crushers in King Kong, what is it called? Kong Skull Island? Yeah, remember those things? Ugh. All right. So, almost an hour, folks. I'm going to cut out. It's about 3:04 in the morning here in the East. I meant to start a lot earlier, but I was waiting for Jedi Rich and Jedi Joy, who are very delightful people, from what I've been able to communicate. Yeah, they have some elements of their show, a little, kind of like, and I do wish they would stick to just reporting stuff, because you have other people, you have people out there, and the reason is this, it's not anything against them, but you're dealing with sensitive information, and you don't want to give off the impression that you're trivializing the stadium situation, and some people would take it that way. But hey, you're doing this in your bikini, and but should that matter? No. I mean, should appearances matter? Not really. But some people are stupid that way. Some people are stupid that way. To them, appearances matter. All I know is when I hear Jedi Joy talk, she is very competent. And she describes what she sees. She explains what she doesn't understand. And she explains what she hopes an outcome would be. And that's as much as you can ask for from anybody. It is very inappropriate for somebody to make fun of her from an anonymous account, or just make fun of her anyway. I ask you this: how would you like it if she were your wife or girlfriend, and you did that, okay? So don't do that, you know? Keep it professional. If you have a disagreement, bring facts, okay? Bring facts. Bring facts, that's all I say, all right? So, I also say this, and it's something that I've said before. Learn this project backward and forward. Learn this project, okay? Oh, and by the way, someone keeps bringing up Benjamin Albright. Let me tell you something. First of all, that guy did something on Twitter that I could have had his Twitter account taken away like that. Okay? Period. A. B, and I've said this before and I'll say it again. B, and I did inform Twitter about this. And they wanted me to fill out, a complaint form, and they were gonna, and they could have taken his account away. All right? His behavior was very bad over nothing. And then later he lied about it. He said that, oh, we had a bet about, and it was a charity. And I wasn't aware of any charities. Okay? So as far as I'm concerned, it was all kind of like one of these, things where you say, oh yeah, I'll bet, yeah. But what happened was that we actually never really consummated the thing. And yeah, when I thought I won, I used the idea that I thought I might win as a jumping off point. This is all I cared about was just, selling video wolf tickets for views, right? That was really all I cared about. I didn't care about actually collecting anything from him. But in all honesty. But here's the thing. What changed it was I was under the impression that Libby was going to do what she did not do. Libby, I already expected her to come in with an 11th hour deal. And she did come in at the 11th hour, but it wasn't with the deal, folks. Libby called me. First of all, she called me at 11 o'clock, 11:37 Pacific Standard Time, the night before the morning of the vote, which is the 27th, right? That was the 26th of March of 2016, okay? And 2017, I'm sorry, okay? 2017. And then she said, I have a letter. She had a letter that she wanted distributed, and she was working with Drew McKnight of Fortress Investments. Remember them? Okay. And I was in constant contact with Drew. Calls. We were, at one point, Drew and I were almost all but symbiotically connected. Okay. These are things I haven't told anybody before, and I think this will give you some insight as to why I've reacted the way that I reacted. I thought the letter was going to say, hey, we give you the land. We give you this. I thought it was going to be a Hail Mary deal. Do you know what it was? All it was just the mayor restating that they had a shovel-ready project and they welcomed the NFL. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's all it was. It didn't change the deal points. It didn't change the deal points, okay? So I was really disappointed. I woke up she called me at 5:27 in the morning. And then Drew called me behind that because Drew had dispatched a representative of Fortress Investments to be at the Arizona Biltmore. All right. They wanted me to help them distribute, but I said, well, I'm a member of the press. I don't think that looks right. I think I should have, some distance. And they did agree. So I said, however, what you should do is go and ask, talk to the hotel manager. So I got up, hastily got dressed. I was only, 3/4 of a mile from the Arizona Biltmore. I was staying at the extended stay, right, in Phoenix. And so I arrived, parked, ran in, and I found the fellow that was representing Fortress Investments. And fortunately for him, he had someone on hotel staff who had figured out, hey, this guy's legit, we'll help you, okay? Fine. So I didn't have to, intervene in any kind of way. I could have just said, hey, on behalf of Oakland, fighting for Oakland, all that. So I had everything worked out, because at first I was like, oh, gee, what about this? I thought, fuck it, this is for Oakland, man. I was ready to go to bat. I was ready to go to war. But anyway, I didn't have to. So I could cool my jets. But I got to tell you, folks, that letter, was tearfully disappointing. It wasn't what I expected. And so, as far as I'm concerned, what bet? How can I bet on something? Thank you, Red Cowboys. I mean, how can I bet on something where, all of a sudden the game, I quite literally felt like the rug had been pulled out from under me. Because if I were the mayor of Oakland, I would have flown into Arizona and I would have said, hey, Mac, I can't get a hotel room. I'll stay. Zenny sleep on the bed, whatever. We're friends. I mean, a long time, 30 years. I know her husband. But the whole point is, I always said, let me have my bed. I'll sleep on the couch. Fine. Go down in the morning. She could request to make a special presentation to the owners. I find it highly unlikely they would turn down the mayor of Oakland on such a matter. She's flying in. TV cameras everywhere. The mayor of Oakland. Wouldn't that have been so dramatic? And she says, I have a deal. I will give you the land, and I will, if you want it for $1 and we work on a sale leaseback, we'll definitely do that. I want the Raiders in Oakland. And I'm willing to do anything to make sure the Raiders stay. Okay? She didn't do that. You understand? She didn't do that. Right, Abbott says, Calbert says, now we know what the phone call was. Yeah. All right. So, if Ben Albright had any real journalistic chops, he would have said, hey, Zenny, you were involved in this. Tell me really what happened from the other side. That's what good journalists do. We have not had a lot of good journalists in this thing. All right. Just being honest. We've had a lot of flamers. Oh, okay. And myself among the flamers regarding that thing, I've done my share of flaming too. I'm not going to let myself off the hook. But I believe I've gotten better. And looks like I was talking with Vinny of the LA Daily News, right? And because Vinny and I saw him at the last, well, not the last owners meeting, but the owners meeting before that. And I wanted to interview him because at first, the last time he was like, nah, I don't want to interview. I'm mad at you. He was mad at me. All right, that's fine. It was the same issues, right? You know how this thing has went. And but I've always liked Vinny. I always thought it was a game with Vinny. I was like, oh yeah, I'm just but relocating a team was a hard deal emotionally on a lot of people, himself and myself included. And I said, so Vinny and I agreed. He goes, look, we're friends. Let's be friends. Left it at that. Love it. And that's how you get on with things. That's what adults do. You understand? That's what adults do. That was cool. That was cool. All right. And so, let's see here. Brian Abbott says, Oakland should have known that Vegas was going to pass an $800 million bond and matched it if they get the support for it. All right. Oh, by the way, here's a flash from Jedi Rich Lightower. He said he should have the video posted in the morning. Thank you. Anyway, he says Oakland should have known that Vegas is going to pass the $800 million bond and match it if they get support for it. Well, Ryan, here's the problem, okay? And I'm glad you, how do I say this? You know, I'll just say it, okay? I'll just say it, Ryan. See, here was the issue. And this reflects how hinky I thought Fortress' presentation was. And this is something I didn't like. And it goes under the heading of this. Don't be wishy-washy. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, look, it's one thing to say, hey, look, I'm willing to do anything to keep the Raiders in Oakland, but have a plan, right? Don't just say what he did. What happened was that Eric Grubman, who's now one of the chairman of NFL hospitality, all right? They shifted him over. But, you know, Eric Grubman was the senior vice president, executive vice president of business affairs for the league, right, at the time, you know, managing the whole relocation thing and all that stuff. So what happened was that Eric had said to them, hey, you know, Mark Davis just wants a loan structure. In other words, and this is what I'm only explaining to you what was told to me. I'm not sugarcoating anything, okay? And what was explained to me was, hey, you know what? He doesn't understand complex financing. He wants a simple loan structure. And Eric was suggesting, he said, and so that basically they do the same thing. And so rather than Drew say, heck, we're not going to do that, they said, we can do that too. And that gets to your $800 million. We can do that too. I mean, yeah, they had a lot of money. All right. Fortress had a lot of money to play with in this deal. No question about it. But it looks like you're this upstart with a lot of money, but you're not quite experienced at stadium financing or negotiations. And so you don't know how to come with a deal that's going to get you to yes without having to jettison the deal at the last minute when you're before a vote. All right? So who are you going to vote for if you're the league? Are you going to vote for the one that has the certainty in Vegas, or the one that has the uncertainty? But here's the other problem. See, my thought was when I heard Grubman say that to him, that they had this shit wired. And I said it just like that. In other words, hey, regardless of what you did, you're not going to get it. Okay? Because they want Davis to have it. The only way you might have gotten it is if the mayor had said, have the land, because they wanted the land. I told Libby to fashion a clean deal. A clean deal in Zinni Abraham parlance means a deal that you cannot say to me, hey, I don't have this. Oh yeah, it's right there. A clean deal is where the party feels like they're coming away with something. All right? We didn't offer them a clean deal. We offered them a dirty deal. And I don't mean that in a derisive way. I say dirty because it didn't have the kind of financial incentives that the other deal had. The other deal was a clean deal. But as Cowboy Wrestler just wrote in his comments, the fix was in. Yeah, the fix was in. Yeah, the fix was in a long time ago, man. If I were the mayor, and I've said this before and I'll say this again, if I were the mayor, I would have, the very minute the Raiders tried this whole LA jazz, I'd have fired off an injunction as fast as greased lightning. And I would have made sure it got out there fast. I would have done anything I could to stop the Raiders in their tracks. National Guard, call the governor, fine. You don't leave. You don't leave Oakland. No, you don't get to leave. You stay, okay? You stay. You're not going anywhere. We're not going to do this. We're going to be nice to you personally, but professionally, we're not going to be nice. We're going to get what we want. What we want are the Raiders in Oakland. Well, Libby didn't get. She was fighting a battle, and I remember when she came up to speak at the town hall meeting at the Coliseum. She was shaking. Poor thing was nervous. Was shaking like, I mean, I had to give her a hug. She was shaking like a leaf. I don't think she quite expected things to be that hard. And I don't think she really believed the Raiders were going to do what they ultimately did. Okay? I think there was a part of her that couldn't, and I think it really changed her. Okay? And I don't think it's changed her entirely for the better. I think it's draining when you feel like you're doing everything you can, but you're not up against a person that really wants to be on your side. You have to consider the Raiders treated her in a way that was arguably sexist. Didn't return her phone calls. Let it be known they were referring to in behind closed doors as the B word. I can go on and on and on. Because when Libby first came in as mayor, people were saying, oh, she's really attractive, and a lot of sexist stuff. She's the 50th mayor of Oakland. You understand? If you're going to dislike something she does, do it on merit. But don't diss her because she's a woman. There's a lot of that. And I personally talked to Libby about that. And it hurts me to recount that to this day. Because I contend the Raiders owe Libby an apology. A big fat apology. Okay? I felt that what somewhat made up for it was the class gentleman that NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell is. Roger Goodell is a virtuoso sports executive. He gets, what I love about Roger, and I say it just like that, is he gets the political process. Heck, his dad was a major congressman. Do you realize that his dad, Charles Goodell, was the only Republican to vote against the Vietnam War? Think about that. So when I wear this with pride of knowing a person like Roger Goodell. Serious about that. Wright Abbott says Baltimore police were going to block them when they showed up in Indy. They were escorted to new home. Cabrera says, what? They were calling her the B word behind closed doors? Yes, sir, they were. And I cannot tell you who told me that, but I heard that a bunch of times. Okay? Oh my God, a bunch of times. I even referred to that on one of my Zinni 62 blog posts before I started Oakland News Now. And I'll actually recall that. And I'll republish that. Okay? Calbar says the old Vapor truck. Yeah. I mean, did I say that not returning her phone calls? I think I may have said that. She's the mayor. Why do you treat the mayor like that? She's the mayor. Okay? So, and then, like I say again, we should have given them land. I remember I had an argument with Ronnie Lott about that. I think I still had the email. Ronnie and I had this debate. Well, no, it wasn't a debate. It kind of went like this. Hey, Ronnie. Email. Hey, Ronnie. Hey, Ronnie. Why don't you give the land to the Raiders? Ronnie. Are you crazy? I said, no. You do it at least. You can just basically say, you know what? We give it to you, and you pay us back $150 million, in stages over 3 years. Bing, bing, bing. Still get your money. Right? Hell, I still like that idea. And so, yeah. But yeah, the way they treated Libby was just wrong. And I'm really surprised, all things and other things considered, that Libby did make an issue of it. So, yeah. So anyway, you know, it's, someone might say, well, they're gone now. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not saying any of this is going to get them back, but there are layers to this story. A lot of them you didn't hear until right now tonight. There are a lot of layers to this story. There was Jerry Jones' 11th hour deal making. I remember John Clayton told me twice that week that Jerry Jones was rounding up the votes. And then on the Sunday, the 26th, that I was flying down to Phoenix from San Francisco, who did I run into? And it's on Zinni 62. John Clayton. We were on the same flight. He and his lovely wife. And so he said, yeah, Jerry says he's got the votes. So basically, it was John Clayton versus Libby Schaaf. But here's the thing. Here's where I also blame the governor of California. You know, Jerry Brown could have simply made a call and jumped in and said, or made a travel, says, you know what? I want to help keep the Raiders here. But he didn't do that. Think about that. The governor didn't do that. Okay? Think about it. You had the involvement of the governor of Missouri in the case of the Rams, right? But you didn't have the involvement of the governor of California in the case of the Raiders in Oakland. And Jerry endorsed her for mayor. Think about that. Think about that. Okay? It's one of those free market things like, oh, let them take care of it. I'm not going to get involved. It's sports. And people would let Jerry have a pass like, well, it's sports, and basically he's too intelligent to deal with that. That's how other people talk about Jerry. You know, to this day, he's too intelligent. Heck, you're the governor of California. Forget all that. Get involved. He didn't do that. Could he have made a difference? Oh, dang on right. But what does it look like when you don't have the involvement of the governor of California? By contrast, you have, and here's why that should have been, because what did Nevada have but the governor of Nevada producing the Southern Nevada Tourism and Infrastructure Committee, right? That formed the gantry by which to launch the rocket that got the Raiders to Las Vegas. So, you know, from a political standpoint, it's got to be governor to governor. But it didn't come out that way. Cowboy says, I have my problems with the mayor, but the way the Raiders treated her was wrong and frankly, quite frankly, disgusting. It was very disgusting. And then there was a whole revelation, Cowboy Wrestler, you may mention, where I found the drawings that that Mies architects had created for the Raiders. But when they tried to make it look like it was another client, it really was for the Raiders all along, okay? Of those stadiums, one of them looks like the Miami Stadium, the other kind of look like the Seahawks Stadium a little bit, right? Produced in 2016, they buried them. And they buried them basically from view, and they didn't surface until last year, and I found them. Wow. Oakland Coliseum Executive Director Scott McKibben told me he saw those drawings in 2016. So did Claudia Capio, who was then the point person for the mayor of Oakland. She saw them too. In the Raiders' office. At the same time, the Raiders said the city had no plan. Remember that? The Raiders had a plan that they could have shared with the city, and did, because Claudia Capio saw it. She represented the city of Oakland. So now are you getting a better idea about why this lawsuit came to be? Just asking. Calvert says, I think Brown is a 49ers fan. No, Jerry, Jerry has had a view of sports that I think no big city mayor should have. But you have this sort of you have people let him get away with it, and it was to Oakland's detriment. Rather than saying to him, "Hey, you know what? You need to let Robert Bob handle this in terms of sports. You need to embrace sports differently and better. You need to understand the role of sports in society and appreciate it." Okay. And at that time, he didn't. And I say at that time in italics because I haven't talked to him recently to find out how he's, or if his views have changed. I don't know. I do know that was personally rough for me. It was very rough for me. Because I accused him of being racist, and he said, and I did so in an email to my board, and I didn't say he was racist. What I said was that he wasn't comfortable. Because I never say anything out loud unless they are. But I said that Jerry Brown was not comfortable with intelligent African Americans who were leaders who spoke the Queen's English. It was more like, "Oh yeah, what's up, man? What's up?" You know, and that's not me. There's some people who, if they deal with a person who has that archetype, they're comfortable. You know the type. They try to solo shake you before you say anything because they see that you're black and they have to like, "Oh yeah, what's up, man?" and all this stuff. But when you walk in the door, and you might be like Marshawn Lynch. You just want to shake hands, right? You don't want to, "Oh yeah, what's up?" And Marshawn's like that. You have to respect that. But there are some people who see you're black and they expect you to act black. Okay? And for them, acting black means not being intelligent. So I felt Jerry wasn't comfortable. And I've had situations like that with people, regardless of color. I remember 1992. I was looking around for a job. I wound up working for the census. And we were in this training course. And this poor lady next to me didn't understand what this guy Woodrow was saying. Woodrow was this big brother who looked like Ichabod Crane. And, for Ichabod Crane was from the Headless Horseman, all right? And, or looked like what I thought Ichabod Crane would look in real life. I whispered something to her, like, "Oh, it's right here." He got mad, Woodrow did. Woodrow was a good 35, 40 feet away from me at the front of the room by the chalkboard, and he got mad that I said anything. And I had no idea he had animosity for me from the jump. And he went, whatever else was going on with him, he was a Vietnam vet, he went berserk. "I can't take this anymore. I tell you, he goes storming out, and I'm like, whoa. And they said, and one of the guys said, I think the problem is, I think you need to just dumb down. I said, "What do you mean dumb down?" He said, "Well, you talk smart." I said, "I just told the lady what page we were on. How is that talking smart?" I'm not kidding you. That's some of the kind of stuff I've had to deal with in my life. Wacko shit. Because that's under the heading of wacko shit. Let me get to your comments. Ryan Abbott says, "I liked how an Oakland resident was asked about the latest proposal for a new A's ballpark who was black, and he said, 'I'll believe it when it happens.'" Cowboy Wrestlers. Cowboy, I believe it's going to happen personally. I want it to happen, let me put it that way. Cowboy Wrestler ads, Z, are Las Vegas Raider games mostly going to be late games as they are in Oakland? Well, considering time zone, yeah. Ryan Abbott said, "No new NBA arena, no new NFL stadium." Oh, by the way, San Francisco is the first city to ban e-cigarettes. Just happened a moment ago. Anyway, okay. Ryan Abbott writes, "No NBA arena, No new NFL stadium, no new Major League Baseball stadium. He put it perfectly. Tired of ideas and proposals. When it happens, I will believe it. There you go. Well, they got their. I really urge you to look at this thing. This has gone way past an idea or proposal. They're getting legislation passed at the state level that, first of all, the first bit of legislation smooths the CEQA process. CEQA is California Environmental Quality Act. Okay, that's CEQA. Then the second part, when it passes the governor, I'd be surprised if it didn't, gives tax increment financing zone for the project, which could produce about $400 million in additional revenue. All right? Okay? Now I want to show you something as far as how back I go. This was, let me show you this. This is on Oakland News Now. And this is from, where is this? Yeah, 1994. Because Kaiser Permanente just announced that they're, on Monday, going to build their new headquarters in Uptown Oakland at 2100 Broadway, right? 25 years ago, Kaiser didn't want to be in Oakland. He wanted to be in Emeryville. Kaiser was too black for him. Think about it. All right? Kip Edwards would hate that I gave that read, but the head of Kaiser Real Estate, that's how I looked then. Kip Edwards is what I'm talking about. Look at this, folks. Look at this. Boom. That's Jerry Brown. He's arguing to the Emeryville Planning Commission why they should reject the Kaiser proposal. That's me. It's a columnist for the Montclarian and economic consultant. That was 1994, okay? It says here, in 1994, Jerry Brown blasted Kaiser Permanente's plan to leave Oakland for Emeryville. A little nostalgia there, but that's gives you a picture of how far back I go. That was when I had hair and a mustache, and then I started working for Elihu in '95, the very next year, and in 1996, I had. Well, I'll tell you what happened. After, when Jerry Brown fired me, and that was in '96, that was 2000, going in 2001, late 2000. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had a 7-year-old umbilical cord of public service in my stomach, literally. And on top of that, my first job out of grad school was with the Oakland Redevelopment Agency. So I was basically steeped in Oakland, right? So I didn't know what I was going to do. But I had a lot of friends. And so, but I looked in the mirror, I thought, I want to change something. And I realized I hadn't seen my face because I had a mustache and sometimes a little beard, sometimes a bigger beard, and I had hair, and I had glasses. So my first endeavor was to see my face. So I shaved my head down to what they call stubble, right? I got rid of my mustache, and I just had glasses. And then I went to have my picture taken for a credit card, and this really attractive woman named Susan Oils at the time at Bank of America said, "Wow, that's a great photograph." And that's this stays. Didn't get me married to her, but oh well. So, a little story for you. Anyway, that's where we're at with this whole thing. So, there. Any other questions? Brian Abbott says, do you know you were getting the Raiders back before in 1994, last year in LA? Oh, in 94, it's a very good question. In 94, there was a proposal out that was, I would say, it was $853,000, something like that. And did I just say 853,000? $853 million. That was the original price tag. And everybody knew the council was going to bite on that. So, assistant city manager Ezra Rapport was the architect of the Raiders deal and went about redesigning that. But by the time, I can tell you by the time that was November 3rd of 1994, hey, by the way, anybody want a thumbs up because you have these folks that have come in the thumbs down, and I'm like, I mean, you know what? To be honest with you, it doesn't really matter in terms of money. I mean, in fact, I could have more thumbs down than thumbs up, and I still make a lot of views. It doesn't matter, and YouTube has said that. But you know, it's just kind of fun once in a while to basically give an FU to people who are just trying to be mean. Why not? Thank you. But at any rate, what was I saying about? Oh, that time. That was November, and I can tell you then. John Madden was on KCBS talking about it. Monty Poole was on. Thank you, Cowboy Russell. I appreciate it. And yes, and Stymie Jones says, how far back do you go in Oakland? Were you born there or San Francisco? I'll get to that in a second. Things started heating up just about a month later in December because there was a lot of conflicting signals. And because it was reflected by the fact that Al Davis was quite literally playing political ping pong between the city of Oakland and the Coliseum, which wasn't a joint powers authority then. There was no bond issue like that. This was a private board, if you will, and the LA County Coliseum. And they were working out a deal to keep the Raiders in Las Vegas at Hollywood Park. Does that sound familiar? Las Vegas at Hollywood Park? Where's Hollywood Park located? Hey, Google, where's Hollywood Park located?
Hollywood Park, Texas, 78232 is 870 miles away.
Hey, Google, where's Hollywood Park located in California?
According to Wikipedia, Hollywood Park, later sold and referred to as Betfair Hollywood Park, was a thoroughbred racecourse located in Inglewood, California, about 3 miles from Los Angeles International Airport and adjacent to the Forum Indoor Arena.
You hear that? So basically the new home for the Rams was at one point about that close to being the home for the Raiders. And they had, so there was a lot of murmurs that the Raiders may not come back. And so you weren't sure. So you were asking me what it was like back then, Ryan. Yeah, that's right, Jordan. You were asking me what it was like back then. It was this consistent cloud of uncertainty. And you didn't have the internet, to trade the latest rumors back and forth off and everything else, right? You didn't have text messaging. You had radio. You had AOL. You did have email. You had radio and email. You had the first dalliances of the World Wide Web, right? But they were slow. Nothing like today at all. And so you were really in the dark. And so you found yourself, as I did, consistently listening to the radio or talking with someone at the Raiders. In those days, I had gotten to know, I didn't really know anybody with the Raiders well. That was 94. That didn't happen until he solidly returned. And then I got to know Alo Casal. But I did know George Vukasin well. George Vukasin was the late president of CEO of Peerless Coffee, and the late president of the Coliseum Board, and a Minch. Hey, get him Canadian, I think it's a Canadian it's a Canadian liquor, but he loved that Canadian whiskey. He loved it, and I think it's Grey Goose. But anyway, he loved it. Bought him a bottle that big for Christmas. But putty in my hands after that. And I miss George. And I felt that the way George was treated by the city and Ignacio at the time was wrong. And Ignacio's still my friend, but hey, that's the way I felt. Ignacio power played him, but see, if you talk to somebody like Elihu will tell you, hey, he was withholding information from us. He wasn't letting us be a part of things. So if you look at it from that perspective, George basically wrote his own epitaph. There you go. Okay, so he wrote his own epitaph. There's just no two ways about it. But I got a lot of information from George Lucas. A ton. So that's how I followed things. I followed them so closely that, according to Monty Poole, the very next year, which is March of 1995, he claims that I broke the story that the Raiders returned from Los Angeles to Oakland. That's right. Monty Poole said that. To which, to this day, I thank you. So, you asked me how far back I go, or at least you asked me. That question seems to be gone now. It is gone. But at any rate, so I won't worry about it. But I've been in Oakland. I started in Oakland April 8th of 74. April 8th of 1974. In high school, I specialized in architecture. And I was interested in cities, city planning. And I took a lot of drafting courses. I took electrical drafting, this drafting, that drafting. And I worked for a great company called M. Rosenblatt and Son, Naval Architects and Marine Engineers, for 2 summers. What they do is, well, hey, look, they draw up the plans for marine vessels, but a lot of what they did was they had the drawings for the vessels, and they would, when a ship came into Mare Island, they would be be involved in the repair of that ship. So you get the drawings, go up to Mare Island, we do what's called a ship check. And what's a ship check? We take those drawings and we quite literally check the pipes of the ship, right? All right, and we look at the pipes and what changes were made, and we compare those pipes to the drawings. Okay, and then we change the drawings as necessary to match what changes the engineers made. And then where the engineers needed to look at our drawings, because they had their own set of drawings on the ship, you have to, that's a law. We wanted to make sure that all the information matched up. That was my job. That was fun. I was a kid. I was, 16? I had a table next to a woman named Zinni. Yeah, that's right. She was Filipino. She was Filipino. And so went to undergraduate school at Texas Arlington, became solidly interested in urban planning. I went there because Eugene Rockman felt that I had a head for administration. He thought I'd be a great urban planner. I had entered a contest to develop a design for City Hall Plaza. Okay, and I want to show you something, all right? Oakland City Hall Plaza. Because I entered this Oakland City Hall Plaza, and I made a design that you could build to use. And the whole rule was that you had to respect the tree, the oak tree, right? Whatever you did, you had to maintain the oak tree. So my design I didn't touch the tree, but I put I wanted to do something like a miniature Grant Park in Chicago, right? With a kind of, or how would I describe it? A kind of concert archway, so you could have your popular concerts downtown. You know, make it a real place, a real gathering place and party place for the city to enjoy. That was my objective, okay? And that was what I was trying to achieve. So I had this kind of I guess you would call it step pattern or whatever. But what happened was that I had this in my design. I had this kind of step up, this way you could step up to the main grass level and the auditorium level. It had these zigzags, okay? So when Yuhei Lee was commissioned and he unrolled his plan, I didn't win. I got runner-up. I cried. I was 79. I was 16, 17 years old. I cried like a baby because I thought I had it nailed. I designed something that could be built. I was proud of it. But I got honorable mention. And the designs that I lost to weren't even buildable. And everybody knew that. Take a look at this, folks. What is that? Okay. That came from my design. And the architect, Yuhei Lee, who I know, who's on the Coliseum board, admitted it. He admitted it. That's my design. That's my design. Okay? So you can tell to this day, at 56 years old, I'm still exercised about it. That was my design. 30 years later, that was my design. So, that's, after that, came back from undergraduate school into grad school at Berkeley. First job out of Berkeley was with Oakland Redevelopment Agency as an intern. Created a computer model for redevelopment projects, but before that, got involved in another issue. To show you what that is, okay? This is called Emeryville Crescent. Crescent. So it's like 580, like that. And hit images, okay? And this Emeryville Crescent basically separated, the way it was designed, the city of Emeryville. Here, look at this. Boom. Okay. This is Emeryville. In I did say 19. In 1987, when I was hired by the city of Oakland, what is called the East Bay Bridge Center was nothing. This is the Crescent. This was part of the Oakland redevelopment. It was weird. Even though this was the Emeryville jurisdiction, okay? This, all right, this area, Pixar is here now. This area was actually Oakland. It was Oakland boundary. It was actually an Oakland boundary. It's weird. It was an Oakland boundary, but an Emeryville redevelopment area. Okay? That's how weird it was. It was an Oakland boundary, but an Emeryville redevelopment area. And so, because of the way it's situated, EB Mud had, and they still have this EB Mud wastewater treatment plant, they wanted to expand it over here. But I was asked to create an economic argument to prevent that. I created, at the behest of Ezra Rapport, a kind of a numerical representation of a big box retail, hotel, and office. And then I estimated the economic impact and the economic throw-off as are presented in the meeting. And guess what? The Best Buy, the hotel, and the office that if you visited Emeryville, you may have been is there because of my work as an intern. no economic argument, we may still have had EB Mud's expanded wet weather storage facility rather than something that became a major player in the future lifestyle and revenue of Emeryville. So you getting the picture? That's my background. And that was straight out of Berkeley, going right into Oakland. But see, during that, I had discovered that Ezra was working behind the back of the EB Mud property people. That's another long story. And so Ezra said I was an energetic intern. He gave me another project. I took that and I created a gigantic computer model on a spreadsheet with system dynamics behavior. And if you think about that, it's really hard, especially if you know differential equations. And it was called the Area Redevelopment Economic Model. And that became the basis for my first consulting business, urban economics. All right. So, hey, thanks for watching. And because it's 3:56, almost 4 o'clock in the morning, and I talked a lot more than I intended to, but I explained some things that I feel that you need to know, particularly about the ins and outs and the behind the scenes, what happened that led up to the vote from Oakland's perspective, from my perspective. That was extremely important. And why the deal went differently, how the mayor was treated, the importance of the lawsuit, and then also my background. So you have some idea about who I am and how long I've been around, because a lot of people don't know. And I'm glad I have the medium of YouTube to explain to people in this way so they get it. Anyway. Jedi Rich says he'll have his video up tomorrow, so we'll resume this. And I promise, a lot earlier, like 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific. See you guys. And Ryan Abbott, I think, is gone, but I will follow up on the whole Boland issue.